I'm currently raising my two younger sisters, Amy, 17, and Liza, 8. For obvious reasons, these aren't their real names. I'm a 29-year-old male, and we live in Australia. Liza calls me Potato, which is where that comes from. This is basically the story of how my family felt entitled to treat both my sisters, and how I simply wouldn't stand for it. I want to preface this by warning anyone with a history of abuse that some parts of their story might be triggering. And to anyone who has experienced abuse, I am truly sorry for what you went through. The main part of this story took place about a year ago. I had moved out 6 years prior, relocating to a different state for work and studies. Honestly, I was terrible at keeping in touch with my family, which is probably why things went on for so long. Looking back at the time before I moved out, I didn't treat Amy well, and if I hadn't left and become less involved with the family, I might have ended up just as entitled and awful. I returned for my grandparents' birthday, and after such a long time away, I spent the morning catching up with my aunts, uncles, cousins, and of course my parents and Liza. This was actually the first time I truly realised how strange my family was. Perhaps it was the change of environment, as a few of my roommates had younger sisters, but it was the first time I noticed how quiet the young girls in my family were. I guess I had always just thought Amy was shy and quiet, but my cousins were the same way, polite, shy, quiet, and obedient. I dismissed it at the time, though. After a few hours, I realised Amy had been missing all day. The party was at my parents' house, so I was quite confused. I snuck off to see if she was just holed up in her room like any typical 16-year-old chatting with friends or studying for a test. What I found was a memory that will haunt me forever. My paternal eldest uncle was on top of my sister, who was clearly in immense pain and trying desperately not to cry as he held her down. I completely lost it, as any older brother would, yelling at him to get off her and out of the room. I scared both of them half to death. But in that moment I was genuinely ready to kill my uncle. Amy was quite disoriented when I tried to comfort her. She was covered in scars and a rash that I later found out was an allergic reaction. She's allergic to strawberries. She said nothing and looked at me as if she expected me to hurt her too. Her room was dimly lit, the curtains taped to the wall, and everything she owned when I left was gone, making her bedroom feel cold and empty. Worse yet, she was 1 month pregnant. When I demanded an explanation from my parents, they, and I mean they, said it was my uncle's doing, and my father simply pointed to one of my 11-year-old cousins sitting silently with her parents and told me to just enjoy myself. I stormed into Amy's room, quietly packed her an essentials bag and tried to get her out of the house and into my car, before doing the same for Liza. Part of me wanted to take all my cousins, but my main focus was on Amy, who was shaking in the back of my car. I drove both of them to the nearest police station to report what was happening. I'll spare you most of the details of the legal battle that ensued, but my family did not take well to having their traditions exposed. It was a multi-generational tradition and, quote, nothing should be wrong with tradition. Amy and Liza were placed in temporary foster care, and Amy deteriorated. To her, anyone could and would hurt her. And every few hours I'd get a report that she was having another panic attack. My 3 uncles ended up in prison for a very long time. I received a significant sum of money from various family members, gained full custody of both Amy and Liza with no forced parental visitations, and my parents were made to pay for all their therapy, medication, and medical needs. My family was torn apart by this. Many of my aunts left their husbands and children after finally finding the courage to follow my lead, and uncles who had married into the family took their wives, who were also abused, and cut ties. I still keep in touch with these family members, and I'm grateful for their support and glad my cousins are safer now. Even some of the older men, who were raised to believe treating women that way was normal, went to counselling on their own when they realised how bad things were. And I've seen more than one instance of them admitting to hurting Amy and apologising, which I accept, as these cousins have done their best to get their siblings or other cousins out of harmful environments. I believe some part of the ruling now protects the younger men in the family, provided they see certain mental health professionals as they grow up and think all of this is normal, so they don't have to go to prison, but still end up on a sex offenders list, which isn't entirely clear. No one is certain who the father of Amy's child was, but she had an abortion, as we were informed that her physical and mental health would not be able to withstand carrying a child she'd likely struggle to care for. She agreed at the time, and her psychologist brought it up when she was doing better, and she confirmed that she wouldn't have loved the child given the circumstances under which she became pregnant. For 6 years, Amy was physically, emotionally, mentally, and psychologically abused in every way imaginable. This primarily came from my father's 4 brothers and a brother-in-law who had married into the family. My parents both stood by and let this happen, offering no support to Amy whatsoever. Throughout the ordeal, my uncles argued that they were entitled to their birth family and that it was simply Amy's coming-of-age ceremony before she was to be married off to one of my uncle's associates at 18. They used her allergy as a form of torture and manipulation, wanting her to be quiet and obedient, pressing strawberries into her skin whenever she spoke a word, and forcing her to eat them when she overstepped. Many of my paternal aunts admitted to suffering this treatment, though most of them were lucky and didn't have an allergy to exploit. Honestly, I can't even begin to explain everything that happened to Amy because of their actions. Liza, on the whole, is doing well. She needed a little therapy, as she was trained to be compliant and taught that what she would go through was normal. But Amy was completely closed off, and it took me 2 months to get her to speak. Now she trusts me, and we often sit down together and I let her talk and open up about anything she feels comfortable with. Her stories often have me struggling to hold back tears while comforting her. I bought Amy a support dog a few months ago. Designed for the constant emotional support she needs, Lickety Split is truly the best of the best dogs. She knows exactly when to be needed and helps so much in calming Amy's anxieties, especially in public. We've had more than one run-in with entitled parents who are unrelated and think they or their kids deserve her dog more than she does. Let me know if you want these stories published, as I've seen people enjoy reading about support dog incidents. But anyone who thinks that can honestly fight me. No one deserves her dog more than she does. Once, one of my aunts whose husband went to prison tried to take Lickety Split, saying their money paid for her. I told her if she came anywhere near my house again, I'd call the police, as there's a restraining order against her for both my sisters. She later came back and tried to poison Lickety Split with tainted meat, but one of my lovely neighbours caught her and chased her off. The police were called, and she's now in prison too, after having to pay a fine and some money to me, because by this point I was quite familiar with the legal system and had sued her. My family still tries to get my sisters out of my care, reporting me for everything from animal abuse to drug trafficking. They once put drugs in a stuffed animal identical to one Amy loves and left it in the yard, but Amy would never do that, so I knew right away something was wrong. The home security system is very effective. I've actually become quite close with the local police who have to check out their claims, but they know I would never do anything to jeopardize my custody of my girls. They mean the world to me. I do have to admit, though, that I've done things that have hurt my relationship with them, yelling when stressed and throwing things at times, but I'm not perfect, and Amy has told me that while these moments scare her, she doesn't feel threatened by me when they happen. I also kind of spoil them a little when they happen. The reason this ended up on AITA is that a few weeks ago, my mother contacted me saying she wanted to talk. I was hesitant, but eventually agreed, and we met in the next town over. There was no way I was going to be followed home. My mother explained that she was in the process of divorcing my father and that she wanted a relationship with me and my sisters, emphasizing a desire to patch things up with Amy, who hasn't spoken to her in years. She explained that she was forced into marriage after becoming pregnant with me and never wanted that life for her daughters. I bluntly told her no, which some of my family members disagree with, because she could have done anything to emotionally support Amy with what was happening. Anything to make her feel better or safer with what was happening to her. But instead, she was alienated and isolated, except for when she was needed to cook, clean, or do something for the family. Even yelling at her whenever she tried to confide in my mother that she was in pain or afraid. Amy was so overwhelmed when I took her away that she even attempted suicide less than a week after my visit. My mother argued that she was entitled just like the other family members who left and contacted my sisters, but I told her that was because they did so to protect their children and themselves. They didn't wait a year after losing custody to try and fight for it back, and I honestly didn't need to give a reason. I have custody, and she doesn't. Members of AITA have convinced me that once Amy is mentally stable and Liza is older, I should talk to them, letting them make their own decisions. I've been told Amy will be dependent after she turns 18, as her mind isn't working properly, so there's no risk of her mother contacting her behind my back, even when she's an adult. While Amy has a phone and a computer, she doesn't have social media, as she doesn't want her family contacting her, since they've threatened her with various forms of torture in the past. This story doesn't have a concrete ending. I have my sisters, and they are living in a safe environment where they will grow up as children. Amy is getting the help she needs, and is slowly breaking out of the tower she built to protect herself, the only way she knew how. But she knows there's no rush. I will work with her at her pace. She's still discovering her interests. But it's like reading a book with a fruity tea. She also has a small collection of stuffed animals, mostly Build-A-Bears, that she adores and always carries one everywhere. She's sensitive to textures, so it's a comfort thing. And once a week we sit down to try and find larger Build-A-Bears that she likes. We only have 3 Build-A-Bears on her wish list, and honestly, I love helping Amy discover herself. She lost so much of her ability to think and feel for herself during this time, and seeing her find her favorite book genre or favorite music genre is a wonderful feeling. Knowing how far she's come, and I live for the days she can actually smile. I'm open to answering most questions, so if you want to know anything, please ask, as I want to raise awareness that these things are still happening to other kids. But there are obviously some things I want to keep private for the girls' sake. In summary, my entitled family felt they had the right to do whatever they wanted with my sisters' bodies. After I gained custody, my mother believed she still had a right to see them. First of all, thank you for the awards. It means a lot. And thank you everyone for the kind words and support. This past year has been really hard, and I've struggled at times. But I have to be strong as my 2 little girls rely on me so much, and the support you've all given me is truly the best thing. A few more notes. Amy was pulled from school at 10 years old, a few months after I left home. She was confined to her room and had very little exposure. Furthermore, I will not be sharing photos of Lickety Split as she is a very recognizable dog, and not everyone who has interacted with Amy and her dog knows the full story. So I don't want to draw a connection between this story and her everyday life, as she's already struggled enough with it. I'm also in therapy, and I work closely with Amy's therapist, so don't worry about my mental health. I'm taking care of myself too. And for those of you spewing nonsense because I didn't go into legal detail, I spent days sleeping only a few hours during the legal battle, because I would research every detail I could to know how to help my sisters. Most of it was vague, messy. I also didn't think many people would care to listen, and I've had to cut out so much of my story, yet people are still saying it's too long. The story is unbelievable, I get it, but I also didn't want to believe it. But you don't have to say it. Just downvote and move along. I don't care what you choose to believe. Amy was pulled with the excuse that she was homeschooled. I'm not clear on how it worked. I was never homeschooled, nor do I homeschool my girls. I'm not clear on how my family managed the homeschooling or anything like that. I just know it worked for 6 years.